This is World of Info. We're coming from Studio 3. My name is Dr. Amr MABROuk. Dua Muhammad is at the control, and we are here with you for 1 hour. And today in the World of Info, we are presenting the world of books. And today in the world of books, we are presenting three very interesting books that deserve to be read. First book is Thank You Teachers by James Patterson. The second book is The Body Language by Gregory Hartley, and with the help of Marian Kartness. And the third book, The Ottomans and Ibn Iyas, in criticism of an absent historian. Three interesting books from different varieties, but definitely deserve to be read. So this is the World of Info, and after the break, we'll start right away. So we're back. We'll start right away from backwards with a very interesting book. It's called The Ottomans and Ibn Iyas, in criticism of an absent historian by Karim Abdelmajid. Well, this is a book that deals with a very awkward moment in the history of Egypt. The history of Egypt in 1516 was a witness of one of the most critical years in the Egyptian medieval and Renaissance period. At that period in particular, the Mamluk dynasties, or the Mamluk Sultanate of Egypt, was reaching its end. And the Mamluks, who were originally slaves that were bought by sultans, and the first sultan who was very much into buying slaves was Salih Nigm ad-Din Ayyub. Salih Nigm ad-Din Ayyub, almost the last of the Ayyubids who governed Egypt, has got a habit of buying young slaves who are originally from Asia Minor, or from the southern part of Europe, from Georgia in particular, for Turkmenistan, the current what is now Turkmenistan, and Turkey. And these slaves were bought from merchants, and they were taught in a very special school that Salih Nigm ad-Din placed in the island of Manial al-Roda. And in this school, these children have received very complicated and very advanced training and education. They were trained military-wise, and they were trained on the language, on the Islam, and on history and math, and at the same time given the chance of a lifetime to excel in all the types of fighting and the types of war art. And then after their finishing or graduation at the age of 18, 19, or 20, they become the private guards of the Sultan Salih Nigm ad-Din Ayyub. And they were called the Salahi Mamluks. These Mamluks were very efficient soldiers, and they have been granted their freedom by the Sultan and became his officers. And some of them reached the high ranks of emirs, or the emir of 1,000, or generals, as they could be said according to that time. With the last crusade that came at the Ayyubid dynasty by Louis IX, Salih Nigm ad-Din went to Mansoura to defend Egypt and died from natural causes. And it was up to his wife, who originally was a Mamluk, Shajarat al-Dur. She has hidden the news of his death, used his stamp to stamp orders, and ordered the generals, the Mamluk generals, to defend Egypt, which they were successful in, not only in defending, but attacking and as well defeating Louis IX and ending him as a prisoner of war, who his wife has paid a handsome ransom to release him. Shajarat al-Dur, therefore, was the first Mamluk sultan. But she's received a letter of criticism from the Caliph of Baghdad, telling her, if you don't have men, we'll send you a man from our side. So she decided to marry to one of the emirs, or one of the generals, who she thought was a docile gentleman. And this by the name of Aybak. Actually, he was not that docile. The moment he married her, he took over the authority and kept her in the harem, and therefore she was so pissed off that she decided to kill him. And once she killed him, his ex-wife decided to kill her, and therefore Shajarat al-Dur was killed. And in this interim government, Saif ad-Din Qutuz came to power as the Sultan of Egypt, or to be the third Sultan or Mamluk Sultan. Qutuz was able to defeat the famous Tatars or Mughals, and when he was coming back to Cairo, one of his generals, Zahir Babers, who was a friend of his, wanted him to give him princehood of one of Damascus. Qutuz refused, and Zahir Babers was afraid that he would kill him, so he killed him first. So then there started the motto of the sultans. They usually don't give the power to the children of the sultan, but they would kill to get to power or omit the sultan. So it was Zahir Babers and his two children became sultans, but they were puppets and they were removed by Qalawun, and hence we went on through a period of turmoil. But always there was a strong sultanate, and this strong sultanate of Egypt was the Bahri Mamluk, and later on the Burgi Mamluk, who were from Circassian origin. Egypt was a rich country because it was fed on the commerce that goes from India with a lot of spices and a lot of silk and a lot of things that goes through the Red Sea and through Suez, through the Nile to Alexandria port, and then it is sent to Europe and with the partners of Egypt that were the Venetian Republic. But by time, with the discovery of the route of the Good Hope around Africa, the commerce started to divert from Egypt to avoid its taxes and go through the Cape of Good Hope. And therefore, Egypt has lost part of its income, and this happened in the 1490s. And therefore, Egypt was getting impoverished. And the Ottomans, who were rising power, decided to attack Egypt and to take Egypt as a part of their rising sultanate. And it was Selim al-Awwal, or Selim I, who defeated, under the act of treason by one of the commanders of Qunso al-Huri, the last of the Mamluks sultans. And unfortunately, Qunso al-Huri lost his life from a stroke once he has seen the defeat, and Selim I went to Cairo, and it was up to the second in command of Qunso al-Huri, that was Tumambai, to try to defend Cairo at the Raidaniyah, which is a place near the Abbasiyah desert. And unfortunately, over there was a defeat, and this defeat was horrible, that the Ottomans passed inside Cairo. And in Cairo, the Tumambai escaped for some times to arrange for the resistance, and he was able to raise some men, Mamluks and Egyptians, to try to attack and defend the rights of Egypt for survival. Unfortunately, they were defeated, and Tumambai was arrested and later on sentenced to death under the advice of Khair Bey, the great traitor, by the Selim I, and the great traitor Khair Bey, who was a Mamluk, who betrayed Qunso al-Huri and later on betrayed Tumambai to become the governor of Egypt. So Selim al-Awwal, or Selim I, decided that he is going to take up all the money of Egypt, take Egypt as a sort of a land of his own, and force Egypt to pay a lot of taxes, and put a governor from his side. And the first governor was Khair Bey, who later on, after his death, the Sultan started sending Ottoman governors up till the year 1800s and the 19th century. So for the witnesses of that was Ibn Iyas, who was a famous historian at the time. He was born in 1448 and died in the year 1522 at the age of 17, 4 years. He was one of the sons of the Mamluks. He was well bred and he was very cultured, and at the same time he had some money, and he was an eyewitness of the war, and at the same time he has written the full history of the Mamluks through the books that reached him. He didn't witness the death of Tomanbai, but he took listening in for a lot of people who told him the stories. It was well known that Selim I, as he went to Egypt after 8 months, left Egypt, he decided to take with him a lot of things. He has taken the workers and artisans. He has taken the important people who will not be a source of trouble for him if they stay. And most important, these artisans were able to build beautiful structures in Istanbul and drain Egypt from a lot of artistry that was there. Karim Abdelmajid in his book is putting some doubts on Ibn Iyas, saying that he was quite old, he was not a witness, he took second-hand stories from the people who were witnessing, and most probably he was very much against the Ottomans, and therefore he could have mentioned a lot of bad words. He claims that he has been to the archives of the Ottomans, and he has seen for himself a lot of papers discussing these terrible times. But it is well known that there were at least, and Karim didn't deny that, there were at least 10,000 Egyptians and Mamluks who died after the Raidaniya in the revolt that was led by Tumanbai. That it was well known that the Mamluk Sultanate, which was an independent, strong state, was destroyed and replaced by by Egypt becoming a governorate governed by the Ottoman Sultan. And it was known and well documented that Selim I has taken a lot of money, which was the remnants of the treasures of the Mamluks, took it with him, and they say it was 1,000 camels carrying a lot of money and a lot of endowments. And the most important thing that he has taken with him as prisoners or as workers per se to Istanbul that reached the number of 2,500. So what I want to say is that this book is interesting. It's the other side of point of view, claiming that it was not an occupation, it was just taking over. But for me, this was an occupation that has changed Egypt from an advanced Mamluk state and sultanate to a weak country or a weak state governed by the Ottomans and put in a great depression, whether this was in commerce or whatever. So a book that deserves to be read, and a book that I believe should be read, and it's really a very interesting one. So the first book of today, The Ottomans and Ibn Iyas, in criticism of an eyewitness of an absent historian. So stay tuned with us in the world of info and the world of books, and we're coming right away after the break. So you're still listening to the world of info, and we're coming from Studio 3. My name is Dr. Amr MABROUK, and Dua Muhammad is still at the control. And the second book of today is a very interesting book. It's called Body Language by Gregory Hartley with the help of Marian Kansi. Well, this is an interesting book because Gregory Hartley originally is an interrogator. He has worked with the intelligence, whether this was the military intelligence or other intelligence during his service in the army, and he has an experience in interrogating foreigners. I mean, people who have different body language than the average Americans. And so he has written this book, which gives you an idea how to understand the body language of others, how to feel what the others try to show you. And there are a lot of emotions, especially in adults, that they can easily express. When a child is born, he does not express his emotions. He learns how to express his emotions or fake these emotions from the people around him. And he gains the experience, and it depends on his type of life, to try to imitate happiness in the place of sorrow and love in the place of hate. So how can you feel this fine thread difference between love and hate in the emotions that the people are showing you. And this is what Gregory Hartley is saying. But also another part of the book is he's trying to give you some tutorials how to train yourself to give a good impression on yourself, especially in the case of doing, for example, an interview, how to deliver a message that you are somebody who is capable of giving in information and giving in the confidence that you are able to do this work or do this job. So there are a lot of feelings that are expressed by the muscles of the facial expressions of the face, by the hands, by the posture, by the legs, by the way you sit, by the way you talk, by the way you walk. All these are body languages. In the face, you can say, see, disgust, hate, fear, surprise, enjoyment, love, pride, and of course, skepticism and a shame, and a lot of things that you will usually try to hide. But in the beginning, at the moment that you are receiving something that could be, for example, like a surprise news, whether this is good or bad. So in the beginning, you will not be able to hide the feelings that you have after receiving this surprise news. Whether if it's a good news and you don't want to show that you're happy, but in the first seconds or few seconds, you cannot deny showing this happiness, and vice versa. So he is trying to tell us how we can really understand this. The way that the people are using their hands, for example, hugging their own hands together and placing the hands in the pits of the arms. This can give you the impression that he has something to hide or that he doesn't want people to share his emotions with. But at the same time, if he's putting his hands under his armpits, but at the same time showing them, this could reflect confidence, or this could be the message that he's trying to convey, that he's a confident man. If a person is putting his hands on his waist, then he is showing off not arrogance, but as much as pride and as being so sure of himself. The use of the neck, the whole use of the trunk, and the use of the legs, whether they are facing you or facing the way of the door or the exit, because he doesn't want to stay. So you have to work on yourself to improve the message that you want to send. You want to look confident. You want to look having a smile on your face, but not a big laugh. You have to train yourself to have the smile of confidence, not the smile of sarcasm, and not the smile of disgust. So people differ from one place to another. People behave differently when they talk with each other. But definitely, you should use a simple, light smile and try to look on the eyes of the one who's doing you the interview, but not always concentrating in his eyes, because this can reflect either fear or overconfidence, which are two messages that you don't want to give. But if you are putting your eyes and your vision away from him, this could give the idea that you are thinking to answer the question that he is asking you. And this is a way that people would use to concentrate and to retain this concentration. So these are different ways of showing the emotions, how to try to be more natural, if we may use the expression, and how to give the message of confidence, of love, of friendship, and of care as much as you can. And he has talked, for example, about David Letterman, the famous anchor man, who has delivered once a wrong message. And this wrong message that he has delivered against one of the politicians, and he was forced to apologize. So when he appeared on the next day to apologize, the message that reached the people who watched him was a message that he was recklessly apologizing because he used the same method that he used in his sarcasm when he's showing acts of sarcasm in his daily show. So he appeared that he is repeating the insult to this politician, which was Palin, the nominee for the vice presidency in one of the elections. So this was the message that wrongly he sent because he couldn't work on improving his body language or presenting a different body language of apology and emotional involvement in this apology. The work of Gregory Hartley is really admirable. It gives you an idea to understand people. But I think what's more important is he's giving you an idea how to pass through an oral exam, how to pass through an information guide to inform the people of how interested you are in this interview and what to present the best of what you have. A book that deserves to be read thoroughly and a book that deserves to work on it to increase your wealth of knowledge about body language. So after the break, we'll talk about our next book. Stay tuned to the World of Info. You're still listening to the World of Info, and today is the World of Books. And our final book of today is a very interesting book by James Patterson, and it's called Thank You, Teachers. And for those of you who don't know James Patterson, he is one of the most famous authors in the United States of America. A gentleman who has earned a lot of trophies, and his books reached the bestseller books in many times. He was born in March 1947, and among his works are Alex Cross, Michael Bennett, Woman's Murder Club, Maximum Right, Daniel X, NYPD Red, Witch and Withered, Private and Middle School series, as well as many standalone thrillers, nonfiction, and romance novels. Patterson books have sold more than 425 million copies, and he was the first person to sell 1 million ebooks in 2016. Patterson topped Forbes' list of highest paid authors for the third consecutive year with an income of $95 million. His total income over a decade is estimated at $700 million. Well, that is very mesmerizing information. But to find him writing a book about teachers, shows you one of his greatest interests. His mother was a teacher, and he has seen her working so hard for a minimal wage and preparing her classes vividly and with great interest to help her students, whether they were in primary school or middle schools. And she was always dedicated and thinking that this is a very important job to be accomplished, in spite of the fact that it is not well paid. And perhaps that's why he became so much into helping teachers. He has given and donated a lot of money as donations for scholarships. He donated millions of dollars in grants and scholarships to various universities, teachers, colleges, independent bookstores, school libraries, and college students to promote literacy. He has built a lot of libraries in different schools, supplied them with books that he thinks will help to broaden the scope of students, and definitely he has had his input and say for getting along with educating teachers and students and giving them a chance. And this book, nice book, is called Thank You, Teachers, is giving tribute to teachers that he has met and had his own interviews with. And of course, he was helped by an assistant to reach these teachers. And in a very beautiful prose, that is one of his specialities, he started having a sort of interviews and to tell us the stories of different teachers who deserve for us to know. For example, he tells us about the science teacher who was involved in a class in 9/11 and suddenly saw the shadows of the two buildings as they were destroyed by planes, how he saved the lives of his students, and how he went and discussed with them the problems and the troubles, and tried to guide them away from any racism that they will inflict on others by the fact that this could be inflicted. Also, he, for example, told us the story of one of the teachers who has given her life to teach the blind people how to be independent. And this is, I think, is a very important step to promote the life of blind people, because blind people can learn, can get an education, but their main suffering is and always will be how to walk around, how to reach places of destinations. And this teacher has given up a lot of her own time to explain to the blind people how to take the metro, how to walk in the streets, how to reach their destinations without help. And this is, of course, a very important thing. And also about an engineer who, after retiring from the army and having a colorful career, went to one of the technical schools and promoted the education and explaining mathematics and explaining math for students and putting them on the right track to get a proper education. He talked about teachers who are involved in treatment of dyslexia, how they can really help people, the youngsters who have dyslexia, to learn how to write and how to read and how to give them the motives. And of course, how the teachers have a very big problem with their own lives, that they have overworked and of course exhausted, and their wage is minimal, and so they deserve to be given raises. And he is trying to orient people with the importance of education, and through his different scholarships he helped the promotion of improvement of the education of teachers. And the nice thing about the book is that he's sending a message which is called "Thank you, teacher." And if I, for example, would use this on and apply it on my own teachers in school, I will always remember that there were teachers who have given up a lot of their time and effort to help me and my colleagues to get an education. For example, the teacher that was involved, Mrs. Topki, who was involved in teaching us English and insisting about the best possible pronunciation of the letters and avoiding the use of the wrong use of P and B. And of course, this is a very important thing to learn in schools, especially in Egypt, where there is a big problem in understanding of the difficulty of pronouncing a P and a B. And of course, I had my teacher of Arabic, who, Mr. Atiyat, has given us great information and feedback how to pronounce the Arabic, how to love the language, how to give ourselves more time to taste the language and feel its richness and feel the importance of understanding the Arabic language. Another important teacher we had in the secondary school was Mr. Abdul Wahab, who unfortunately passed away a couple of months ago, and he was very famous, Mr. Abdul Wahab Yunus, for teaching physics, and he also has involved himself not only in teaching physics but also in working in experimental schools and promoting their work and trying to find a better curriculum of education for youngsters. And of course, this helped generations of students to find their way in the proper education. The idea of reaching out for teachers and helping them is a very good idea by James Patterson. His way of thinking of how to make life that good for teachers is very, very important. Of course, he has also uh, emphasized the role of his mother as a leader in the school, and the one who has drawn his interest in understanding the role of teachers before the kids show up, how the teachers consume a lot of time at their own homes before going into the class to prepare for the class, to make the class attractive and interesting for the students, and how the burnout is a possibility for teachers, and how teachers find themselves uh, in the mishap of the youngsters of the new generations of the alpha or the Z generations, who can definitely give some hard times for their teachers, and how these teachers need to follow and understand them, and this is what's important. So teaching is not about being right or wrong. It's about listening and considering, trying to understand the students and giving them as much as time to understand them, how to help them to understand and live through the times of trouble, how to find a way to convince the parents to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Because sometimes the parents, all what because they are so much absorbed in their work or absorbed in their own problems and troubles, they will refuse to help their children or to get along in schools, and so the teachers find themselves trapped to be the not only the education givers but also the raising up and giving a role model for the students. And of course that's why some teachers get so much involved with their students, and knowing when these students are abused verbally or physically by some of the parents or the step parents, where these teachers get involved and fight for the integrity of their students, and therefore help these students to reach a better time and a better life, of course, to help them through these different and difficult times. The fact that teachers need help, the fact that teachers are the helpers of building a society, deserves the words of gratitude. And that's why I really admire the work of James Patterson, who has used a big amount or some of his money to help teachers and to help students to get a degree in teaching and become themselves involved in lives as teachers. And he's making sort of his own crusade to improve the level of uh, grants giving to the teachers, to improve the look of the society to the work of the teachers, and asking us to appreciate their work and to understand that teachers really mark our lives and make our lives directed towards a great important uh, aim, which is raising our children properly. So after the break, we'll continue with Thank You, Teachers. So we're back with the world of info, and today is the world of books. My name is Dr. Amr MABROUK, and Muhammad is still at the control. And yes, we are talking about the beautiful book by James Patterson about Thank You, Teachers. Perhaps two of the most important characters that he tried to show us in this book, because every chapter carries the experience of a teacher, a role model in teaching, and these are real people, real names of how they shape their lives to help students. And so he talked about one of them, and this is Mark Bolton. And Mark Bolton studied psychology and was aiming to become a therapist and open his own practice and work in therapy. But he found himself directed and motivated to work in schools, in helping and working to have a career in school psychology, which became his career in Detroit public school system. This gives you an example of how a dedicated person can really affect the lives of his students by guiding them and directing them in times of troubles. Talking with them and counseling them is definitely a very important burden that will be easily relieved once these students find somebody who's listening, caring, and giving advice. Another example is the teachers who get involved in teaching high schools, especially in high schools in troubled areas where the students have lack strong family bonds and they are suffering from a lot of peer pressure. And the school teacher is the one who will be like an anchor that will help these students to find a way, motivate them enough to get away from peer pressure into a positive pressure to become good and reaching a safe haven. The role of teachers is definitely very important in the lives and the times of the students. And giving examples like the ones that James Patterson has given definitely really help us to understand how teaching and giving the important information to teachers can really affect the career and the work of people. And of course, when we talk about James Patterson and the way that he decided to help teachers and donating millions of dollars to improve the education system, and also working on a very important thing, which is the importance of the extracurricular reading by opening libraries in different schools and choosing books, not only his own books, but books that are related to different fields of knowledge, can really help students to find their way to read and increase their knowledge and information. So not only is he supporting teachers to get a better education or a better education experience, or not only he is supporting their other students to get involved in education to become teachers, but he is also supporting the increasing the wealth of information through supplying lots of schools with their own libraries with multifaceted books that helps to stimulate the curiosity and the interests of students. I think that the investment in education is the most important thing that leads to the formation of a full-rounded human being or a full-rounded citizen. And I think that the work that we are trying to do in Egypt to improve the schooling system deserves to be encouraged, and at the same time to ask for more, to get more and more funding for education in these schooling systems. A beautiful book about Thank You Teachers, which gives you an idea of how we should appreciate education. So you're still listening to the World of Info, and we're coming after the break. So with this, we come to the end of the program today, the World of Info, and today was the World of Books. And today we have presented three interesting books. The first book was The Ottomans and Ibn Iyas in criticism of the eyewitness of a book of an absent historian. And the book, by the way, is by the name of Bada'a al-Zuhur fi Waqa'a al-Duhur, which means the best flowers in telling the different parts of history. And the second book was about body language by Gregory Hartley. And the third book was by James Patterson, and it's called Thank You Teachers. With this, we come to the end of the World of Info and the World of Books. I hope that you will join me next week, same time, same station, in the World of Books, and wishing you a very pleasant weekend. My name is Dr. Amr MABROUK, and Dua Muhammad was at the control. Always stay tuned to Radio Cairo.